Yo ho. No, no, no.
Voiceless.
I say sad.
Welcome back
I don't know.
to Ocean Stories, a special episode from me and the North Sea girl of TikTok, our very own Sarah Hersping. Sarah has gone viral
Guys.
on the North Sea side of things, and we are lucky enough to have her today. A star.
We actually thought I got a million questions on my North Sea TikTok viral videos. North Sea questions, as if I was an expert. I don't know, shoot. So we thought, okay, what if we just make a little special episode about the North Sea now that we're still in holiday mode. We don't want to bother any of our real guests. So yeah, I guess I'm your guest today.
Let's talk about it.
Woo! Let's talk about it. Okay, backtrack. If you guys don't know what's going on, go open your TikTok and type in North Sea TikTok. There's I don't know, it's like one of these random ass TikTok trends where nobody knows where the hell that came from, but it's this song that we failed to sing just now, and just videos of ships and crazy waves and crazy water and like oil rigs and people working on oil rigs and just like a lot of scary
And the
stuff.
song is
and then
scary
it's just
too.
Like trying to make you
So
be
I feel like
scared.
the song
yeah.
and the pictures of the ocean, the videos, make it even scarier.
Yeah, and it's just like container ships and then containers falling into the water and all that kind of stuff.
Oil rigs.
And I randomly woke up one morning and I'm literally like in my pajamas and I was watching all these videos and I was thinking to myself, where would these videos be recorded? Like, where even is that part of the North Sea? So I just made a random TikTok with like a map behind me, just be like, and I was just like, oh, I didn't even know where exactly the North Sea was. And that just, I'll say it a little bit more than that, but that blew up and people went nuts in the comment section, but in like all directions. Like some people were haters, some people were loving it, some people were talking about Frozen 2, some people were asking questions.
What did the haters say?
So much came up. People were talking about the Vikings. The haters were like, how the hell are you from Germany and you don't know where the North Sea is? Which, that is not what I meant. I was saying, I'm not even sure anymore where exactly the North Sea is, meaning like, is it going all the way up to the North Pole or is it like part of the Atlantic? I did very much well know that it's bordering the UK and the Netherlands because I swam in it a million freaking times. But yeah, it's kind of funny because people on TikTok just take your word and run with it. And then I actually like uploaded a second video where you can see where exactly the North Sea is and saying like, okay, this is what I meant. And people were like, it's not played out to the same people. So the first video is still getting shit on the topic that I was trying to like clarify already. So yeah, crazy place, TikTok, scary place. I mean, it's honestly just funny. I was being sassy and just giving the haters shit and it was fun.
So it turns out that the North Sea borders the UK, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Germany too?
Yes. Yeah, like the part where Germany and like there's islands. Are there German islands? Yes. And the part where Denmark and Germany are connected, kind of.
Okay.
But yeah, it is kind of funny. It is way smaller than I thought it was. It looks like a little lake on the map, honestly. We'll throw it onto our Instagram. And yeah, I was wondering how waves that high can be in that little water, which I think they are not. I think it's all bullshit. But more later.
Yeah, because you would wonder, how are these giant cargo shipping containers, boats, cargo ships going through these giant waves like in that little tiny area? You would think that that's like in the middle of the deepest ocean, but apparently the North Sea is shallow.
Exactly. It is super shallow. And I think, okay, so I did some research. National Geographic hopped onto it right away. And according to National Geographic, the waves aren't really that high. I think they're like 6 feet maybe, which is not what you can see in the videos. Like the video waves are like freaking 10-story building kind of waves. So, but apparently it's very like choppy, and the waves are coming in like really fast, and there's no set breaks or whatever. So it's like wave, wave, wave. And if a boat is like parallel to the wave, it's pretty easy for the boats to flip, just because it's just of like how fast the waves are rolling in. So it is like quite dangerous. Like if it's stormy, it is quite dangerous, but I don't think the videos are from that place.
I saw a headline
Like at least not the
recently,
big
like the week of
ones.
Christmas, that there was a cruise ship, like a pretty big cruise ship in the North Sea, that a rogue wave, which is like a randomly super high wave that's abnormal for the area, hit the ship and it lost power, and they had to like get out. And in that article, I saw it said that
so scary.
wave heights of 65 feet are like pretty normal for the North Sea, but that's not like the highest waves in the world. That they're high, but they're not like the most high.
That's okay. That's so interesting. I feel like there's so much conflicting information out there.
It's hard to measure
yeah,
waves in feet, I think. I mean, they're moving. That's the same thing with surfers. Like, they're always fighting over how high the waves are.
Yeah, I guess. But if there's a buoy out or something, I think you can actually measure how high they are. Well, the thing is here, I think a lot of the videos are from different places because they have been. There's the same thing for the Drake Passage, which is like, you know how it was like trendy kind of to go from Argentina or wherever down to Antarctica, and a lot of people did it. And you can actually, it's like supposed to be one of the craziest passages you can, like, with the stormiest weather and the most unsettled sea in the world. So there's a lot of these little vlogs of like, we went to Antarctica, this is us crossing Drake Passage.
Okay.
And I've seen a bunch of the same videos on the Drake Passage videos that are now on the North Sea TikToks. So it's definitely one of the TikTok
When
bullshit
something becomes a
things where
trend,
just,
people
like,
start
throw.
to, yeah, I've seen a lot of AI generated videos of the sea like shooting cargo containers like 50 feet in the air and things like that. And you see the first comment is like, this is why I'll never go in the ocean. And you're like, this is not real, obviously. So I think, yeah, when something becomes a trend, people capitalize on it. They use footage from anything.
For sure. Yeah. And that's definitely what's happening. But the North Sea is still like crazy, and it is a really rough part of the ocean for how small it is and for the fact that it's kind of completely enclosed by land. Oh yeah, and then another thing. I said, wait, isn't there also the tunnel? Because for everyone who's not from Europe, there's actually a tunnel with a train that's going from the UK to Paris, I believe. I should know this. It's like an underground train under the North Sea. Well, it's actually the English Channel. It turns out the English Channel is its own thing too. So yeah, I was also being roasted for that because I said that the tunnel is going through the North Sea. No, it's going through the English Channel. So Atlantic, English Channel, North Sea, Danish Sea. That's what we're working with.
What were people in your comments saying about the Vikings and about the Frozen movies?
Okay, apparently Anna's and Elsa's parents died in a ship accident in the North Sea in a storm.
Oh, wow.
Like that's what
it
it's
all
based
adds
off.
up.
Which is crazy. But yeah, I was doing some research. I couldn't really find, I think it's all kind of made up, but apparently it is based on a story based on a town in Denmark, like the whole Frozen movie. I don't know. If you're a Frozen fan, you probably know more than me. Please comment, because I'm just repeating what I saw on TikTok, and as we just learned, TikTok is not a good source of information. Yeah, a lot of people were like, oh, don't believe what you see on this app. I'm like, duh, that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm questioning this. I don't know, it's just so funny. And the Vikings obviously cross the North Sea all the time. And apparently the North Sea once was the Dutcher land. So it was all ice, and then the ice melted. ...
Question mark?
People walked across the ice. So some people also say it's haunted.
Oh, creepy.
There's a lot going on. I tell you, the North Sea, I was just swimming in the North Sea like nothing has ever happened, and now I'm learning all these things. I'm like, ooh, creepy.
Yeah, I mean, right before this, I Googled North Sea facts and clicked on the first link, which was North Sea facts for kids, and this is what it says. It has wild storms and foggy winters. Because the sea is mostly shallow, the currents are strong and often pull in different directions. That's the extent of my North Sea knowledge, but it makes sense why ships have problems if it's foggy, there's currents in different directions, if it's shallow. I mean, 65 feet high is really high. That's hard for me to imagine.
Yeah, that is crazy. That is super high. That's conflicting information, which with the National Geographic thing that I was looking at.
I mean, maybe on a map it looks small, but it could be that in real life, in terms of like nautical miles, it's bigger than we're thinking. I saw a thing that was like a map of the world, but the countries shrunk down to their like actual size without all of the distortion that our like modern map systems cause. And you see like the real size of countries and you're like, what? So it could be something like that happening.
Okay, here it says that the North Sea is far from the stormiest body of waters in the world. The Southern Ocean has large, which is like not surrounded by land at all, has like gigantic waves that build up and are 25 to 30 feet tall. So 65 would still be double. Like maybe it was like one crazy wave, but that just sounds super insane. And then it said in 2018, a buoy detected a ginormous wave of 70 feet. Like that was the most insane thing that ever happened in the Southern Ocean.
I don't know. I got the 65 feet thing from a New York Times article. So maybe we should hit them up and be like, what's up?
But the Vikings more than 1,000 years ago were traveling across the North Sea in like wooden pedal boats. That's most likely not what these are called. And they just knew about like the currents and the weather and stuff, and they figured it out. So I'm like, oh, that is so crazy. Like, imagine figuring this out way before buoys measure waves and you had weather forecasts and whatever. Like, it's just so insane to me. I feel like, yeah, it's crazy what people did thousands of years ago.
This is going to be very tangential random comparison, but it's crazy too how different the water conditions can be depending on the wind and the weather patterns, because I've definitely had experiences where one day you're out on the water on a little boat and it's the best day ever. It's so smooth and calm, everyone's just hanging out, and I've gone out in the exact same place in the exact same boat and I'm almost in tears. I'm so stressed out. Like, it's windy, it's so choppy, the boat is like taking on water, and yeah, so I feel like it could also depend on the weather conditions a lot and like knowing how to navigate them, because obviously on the day that the water was choppy, my friends and I did not check like the wind forecast.
Yeah, the ocean is crazy. Also, how quickly like currents are crazy, how quickly ocean temperatures can change within 24 hours and stuff. It's insane. It's crazy.
I think the reason that this trend blew up, well, one of the reasons, besides the footage just being like really fascinating and interesting to look at, and people are like intrigued by things that they don't normally see, is that people are genuinely afraid of the ocean. And all of the comments that I see on these TikToks are like, that's why I'm never taking a cruise. Like, that's why I'm never getting in the ocean. And I don't know how to feel about it, because on one hand, I'm like, cruises are horrible. Like for the environment, for the communities they visit, etc. So I'm like, okay, yay anti-cruise content, but boo people being terrified of the ocean and thinking that like they'll never want to go near it or never ever go on a boat trip ever because they think that there's gonna be these like rogue 65-foot waves that just like tear their ship up.
Yeah, I think it's just like people already, just like you said, already are scared of the ocean, and then all these videos trying to portray the ocean as scary as possible is definitely not helping. But yeah, it is crazy to see. And also like the oil rigs and the workers, and it's just like pitch black and crazy conditions, and they're just like screwing something together, hanging off one of these metal structures, and waves are crashing, and then they're just like underwater, over water. And then there's like a bunch of videos about their training where they're just immersed in like a part of the ship, and they're just completely immersed in water, and then they have to like swim through the windows and go through little narrow things. And like obviously that gives me like, that freaks me out. That's like watching Titanic. But I don't know, it's just like obviously so different from anybody's reality that's just swimming in the North Sea or anything like that. So I'm like, I don't love how the ocean is portrayed. It's cool if you can watch it and it's just giving you a thrill, and you're like, obviously that's not the reality for most people, but I don't like that it's making people be like scared. Like one person even commented like, oh no, my kid is traveling to Rome and Europe, I'm scared that she's not gonna be fine. I'm like,
no, that's
what?
actually
Like,
awful.
first of all, I know. Like, first of all, how's Rome close to the North Sea? And second of all, if you were just on land swimming in there, that has nothing to do with a ship that's like in the middle out of the ocean, open ocean in a storm.
That's
like,
actually awful.
I don't know. I feel like people are just running with the information, and it's just like so random.
Yeah, that's how like viralized things go. People just freak out.
I know. And then nobody's fact checking anything. You can just throw on there whatever you want, pretty much. And if it's shocking enough, people will just take it. And I don't know, yeah. The North Sea is crazy with the currents, though, and it has really insane tides. Like, the ocean will go really, really far out and back in, and it can get kind of dangerous because you sometimes underestimate how fast the ocean comes back. So if you walk out too far, people actually get into really sketchy situations. So generally, I feel like it's always really good to be educated about the ocean that you are going into. Same in like France, the west coast of France. We used to surf there quite a lot, and people are just not aware about like how strong the currents are, and there's always like parts of the ocean with lifeguards and you can swim, and people always just like, obviously those parts are kind of packed, so they go to the parts that are last packed. But there is a reason that there's 7 lifeguards for a 200 feet part of the beach, because the currents are insane over there, and people have to be pulled out of the water every single day. Like, there's helicopters going out like so often. And I think a bunch of people that, especially people that didn't grow up close to the sea, are just like, oh yeah, I went to the Mediterranean and now I'm swimming in the Atlantic, same. No, it's good to at least have some awareness of what's going on. And like, if there's lifeguards, there's most likely a reason for them to be there. And I don't know, generally I think it's good to just be aware, but to not be scared. Like, if you know what's going on, then you're fine.
You're so right.
Random tangent.
No, it's the same thing where I am right now. I'm in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which is the Atlantic Ocean.
You're in the Outer Banks.
And yes, and something that actually breaks my heart and like breaks my family's heart, and I'm sure breaks other people's hearts as well, is that every single year you see the headlines of adult men who are in otherwise excellent health conditions passing away because they went for a swim and got pulled out in a rip current. And I guess that they don't know what to do in a rip current, or that the education's not there, or they're not as strong of a swimmer as they thought, or whatever mix of reasons, they end up drowning. And it's really scary. And I feel like they do so much education about riptides, like swim to the side, don't fight, like get out of its pool.
That's so interesting that you say that, because I learned that really late in life. I learned that when I was in like surf camps and I was educated about it, because I think
super
people
interesting.
that don't live close to the ocean don't really know. And I am pretty sure that a bunch of like my friends that don't live near the ocean are like super aware of what to do when you're in a rip current.
Wow, okay, that's actually
like,
super good to know, because my family is half Australian, and in Australia they really have rip currents. They have rip currents times 50. And so I think it's just always been a thing in my family. My grandma and, my family will recount stories of when they were pulled out miles out past the shore. And it's so scarring, that scary experience, that they always use it as a cautionary tale. And I don't say this to be like, don't go swimming. I just mean that I've always been told what to do in a rip current, and I see the signs everywhere. So to me, I'm like, it's crazy that people don't know, but it makes so much sense what you're saying. Like, some people really just don't know. They think it's also what you said.
No, a lot
they
of
think
people
they
don't
can
know.
swim, which I understand. Like, you go swimming a lot, maybe in a pool, you go swimming in a lake, you go swimming in a calmer area, and then you don't realize that like the currents can really be strong.
Yeah, you can fight a current. And definitely, I think a lot of people don't know. And I think in Europe there's not that much education about it, probably because in a lot of parts in Europe there are not that many strong rip currents. Like, I don't think there's crazy rip currents in the Mediterranean. I don't know, maybe there is.
Yeah, they're not,
but
I don't think they're nearly as strong as here.
If you were not 100% sure what to do in a rip current or anything like that, go and check it out. But Lydia, tell us briefly what to do.
Well, this has really inspired
we're
me,
in a rip
actually.
current.
I'm definitely going to post something on our Instagram about this, so check that for the real facts. But it basically makes this shape sort of like a uterus in the fallopian tubes. It's the only thing.
That is so true.
That is the only
actually.
thing I can think of at the top of my head. And
Kind of like a Y.
yes, like a Y. That would be a
the
much better
uterus.
way to describe it. And you can see them in the water based on, like, if you have polarized glasses, you can see them better. But based on where the waves aren't forming, it's usually where all that water that's coming in is being pulled out to sea, like you were talking about earlier. And it can happen really fast, and it's obviously super strong. So really strong rip currents, you really can't fight against them. And they say don't fight against them. If you feel yourself like being pulled really fast, you could waste and expend all your energy like trying to swim straight to shore, but you're never going to be able to make that direct path. So sometimes they say just float, swim to the side. Like, swim to the side. You need to get out of the current. But I'll post some more like real like lifeguard information.
And especially also if you have young kids, like the amount of times that I saw toddlers on like the France West Coast just like with their little floaties in rip currents, that's just not the vibe. And again, if you're on vacation and you're not sure what's going on and there's lifeguards, the lifeguards are there for a reason. So make sure that you know what's going on.
Earlier you mentioned the oil rig parts of the North Sea videos, and I want to talk about that a little bit. Well, I don't have much to say about it besides that I think we can confidently say this is an anti-oil podcast. And I feel like a cool, potentially positive side effect, maybe I'm reaching here, of these North Sea TikTok videos, is people can see how dangerous those offshore oil rigs really are, because it's different than offshore wind, because with the offshore oil rig, you have a serious potential for contamination, obviously oil spills. And when you see how unpredictable and crazy the ocean is and how dangerous these jobs are that people are working on the oil rigs, and you put two and two together, you're like, dang, why are we putting this high stakes potential pollution, contamination moment in an ocean where it's so unpredictable, dangerous, the waves can be 70 feet high, whatever. It's just like, maybe we should start moving towards things where people don't have to like do dangerous training and live in the middle of the ocean and also potentially contaminate the whole sea.
Yeah, also the fires. Like, if you think about being on a like oil rig full of oil, like, is there anything that can catch fire easier than that? And you're just in this insanely stormy weather. Like, I'm always wondering how anyone keeps that under control in the first place. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, can we not? There are like safer alternatives.
I wonder if like the North Sea is such a good place to do it because it's that shallow. Because I'm always like, how deep can you drill? True. I don't know. That
depends on the oil reserves
that's just
too.
Beyond my imagination. Also, like, this is actually a great thing. We love the tunnel. I'm kind of scared of the tunnel a little bit, but we shouldn't be scared of the tunnel.
Tunnel?
It's crazy that you can take a train from the England to Paris, like the London-Paris one. It's crazy that you can take a train. So good. You don't have to fly. You can take the train. Is it scary to be in a tunnel under the ocean in a train? Yes, it is. But it's also the coolest thing ever. I actually have never done it. I really want to do it. I've only done the one from like San Francisco to Berkeley. You're also under the ocean in the like subway in the BART, which is so trippy. But what blows my mind is how did they get the tunnel down there?
I know, that is seriously
like,
so
I think
confusing.
They like dug under the ocean and then made a tunnel. But that just
like, how did they physically do that?
I'm how that's possible.
Thank you, engineers.
And
engineers, comment down below. How did they build underwater tunnels?
Yeah, that's beyond anything I can imagine. Like, it makes sense to build a tunnel in a mountain or something, but yeah, I don't understand. And like, how can you be sure that all the pressure and all the water doesn't break the tunnel? But people know what they're doing, and it's safe, and it's crazy, it's insane. So we love the tunnel. We are pro the tunnel.
I'm scared to be pro the tunnel because I don't know anything about it, and I'm like, what if the tunnel actually causes like a ton of noise pollution and like environmental problems? But I can preliminarily say I'm pro the tunnel.
I feel like mainly that like the tunnel was like a huge thing before. Everyone had to take the ferry or mainly fly, and now the tunnel is just like the most environmentally friendly travel option to go from the UK to the mainland.
Definitely,
because it's the
pro
train.
Public transit and pro trains. I like saying what I'm a pro of and what I am anti. I am pro train, anti oil, pro ocean, anti not knowing about rip currents. Why were you so surprised to find out that
that's the theme of the podcast?
I'm in the Outer Banks.
Because I feel like the Outer Banks had such an insane, like, everyone's talking about the Outer Banks after the show The Outer Banks because everyone watched it, and now I'm like, what? No way you're in the Outer Banks. That's so funny. People are also always asking me like, so I don't have you watched the OC? Like, in the US it's called the OC, but in Europe it's called OC California.
Is that called 90210? Show called OC.
It's just called the OC. It's with Ryan and Marissa.
No,
it's
I've never seen
from the early 2000s or late 90s. It's like, I think it's been way more popular over here than it was in the US, but people in the US know it. People in Europe are obsessed, and everyone's like, so have you been to the OC? Oh my god, the OC, blah blah blah, which is just like everything between San Diego and LA pretty much is Orange County, which is the OC. And like the part where they film, I guess it's like Newport Beach or something, so it's all like rich people living the California lifestyle, and it's just funny. And I think it's the same thing as Outer Banks, because everyone watched the show, and whenever someone mentions it, just like, oh my god, yeah, it's actually real, people are there.
It's true. And the craziest thing is that the Outer Banks was not actually filmed in the real Outer Banks because of filming laws. So I'm pretty sure it was filmed in Wilmington or something, somewhere else, but the images are not even of the real Outer Banks, which is incredibly frustrating for me. I don't know why that makes me so mad.
That is so
why
funny.
not rename it? Rename it something else. Like, it being the Outer Banks actually has nothing, in my opinion, centrally to do with the show. The other thing that drives me insane is that now when you go into like the tourist shops, they have these big stands, and it's all of this horribly ugly, and awful merch that says Poglandia all over it. Poglandia, the Outer Banks, Poglandia. I guess like kooks and the pogues. Ew, I don't even like to say, it makes me cringe even just saying that. But that's like the groups of people on the show. Like, one of them's the rich people and one of them's like the surfers, like the locals. And it just kills me that in a tourist shop, literally designed for the tourists coming to buy like Outer Banks merch, they've created all of this like Outer Banks stuff to like, I don't know. I guess I don't know why I'm being a hater, because I'm pretty sure the target audience is like tween girls. So go off, tween girls that love the Outer Banks, but it frustrates me a lot.
That is so funny. But you can actually surf, and like, does it make sense that the story would be based in the Outer Banks?
It's hard to say, because
you know what I mean? Like,
honestly,
does it add up?
the Outer Banks is really long, and there is only a 2-lane road that goes through a lot of it. So I don't know that it's as populated as like centrally as it is in the show. Like I feel that the permanent population here is a little bit more spread out. And also I don't really see the Outer Banks as like, in the show, there's people that live there permanently that are very, very wealthy. And then there's people that live there permanently that are not. That's like the whole like crux of the main premise of the show. That's definitely true to an extent here, because I think there's a lot of, sorry, I'm really getting into the demographics of the Outer Banks. I'm almost done. There's a lot of construction workers, housekeeping workers that live here and are lower income, and they work in the service industry and they get, you know, totally ripped off. And then there's obviously the tourists that come that are super wealthy. So that definitely exists, but not like in the show. I was actually thinking though, I have this list on my phone of things that would like kill a European person on site. Like, you know how let me explain. You know how there's the thing that's like things that if a Victorian child like ate it, or if a pilgrim like ate a Pop-Tart, it would just immediately die. I have that list in my phone for things like if Europeans saw them in the US, like they would just pass away. And one of them to the list, and it was how big the vacation houses are here. Some of them, like there's this one road where there's about 10 or 12 of them, and they're really close together. They're only like 30 feet apart, and these houses are probably like 12, 15 bedrooms. I'm pretty sure to rent it for 1 week is like $20,000 or $30,000. Like 10 bath, gigantic houses. There's a guest house. The pool's like got swimming lanes, and it's so gargantuan and giant. We're always like, who has enough family that actually gets along that could fill that house? Like
that could fill 15 rooms, just like, and then can also afford those.
Who can afford it, and who wants to vacation with that much of their extended family? Because the houses here are really designed for like 20 people at once, and those houses, seriously, I think the max capacity is probably like 30, 40 people. They are so big. I'll also put them on Instagram so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But that's a little bit
of
a tangent. But North Sea, the Outer Banks, we're just talking about what's trending right now.
The OC, the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Oh my god, we should make a whole series of things that would actually both ways, that would put Americans or Europeans into like complete shock. But that's for another episode. Well, should we wrap it up here, because I need to pack because I'm flying back to the US. Woohoo! I'm so excited.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much to the North Sea TikTok star of the decade for coming on and
thank you for
telling us
me.
A little bit about your experience. And we look forward to seeing what else you have to say about the North Sea. Follow Sarah on TikTok.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Ocean Stories. If you'd like to follow along on Instagram, you can find us at oceanstories_podcast for updates and behind the scenes.
We'll also be sharing our ocean adventures on YouTube at Ocean Stories Podcast. If you like this episode, please show your support by leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Join us next Tuesday for more Ocean Stories.